Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I am delighted to be joined by Jim Simonetti and Kevin Graham. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here in a State of Mind studios to discuss all things Celtic. Obviously, yesterday we had numerous broadcasts, Kevin, all around the victory against Motherwell. You've had 24 hours to think about it. How would you view that victory yesterday?
Oh, I'm happy with it. It's like I ate Sundays, give me a happy Monday. So,
you've been thinking about that.
I've been thinking about that. Aye. I'm not going to take credit for it, but whoever came up with it on Twitter can take credit for it. But I'll steal it anyway. We done what needed to be done. The second half was very heartening. We looked more fluid. We looked more ourselves in the second half. It was extremely good to see Ayeti getting a goal. It was fantastic to see big Julian charging up the park in the 92nd minute, and he's finish. We never really spoke about this yesterday, but his finish was a great finish as well.
It was excellent.
And James Forrest, Callum McGregor, the leadership, Forrest's goal. Look, after the week that we had, we needed 3 points. And we got it, and we had not a bad performance in the second half. Obviously, we've still got an awful lot of questions about the fitness of the players and Neil Lennon's starting team selection, and obviously the European hangover is going to take a wee while to
subside.
Get over now. But we've got a 2-week international break, time to dust ourselves down, have a wee review of what's going on. Hopefully maybe get a couple of players in the next week or so, and then get ready to face Ross County on the 12th of September.
There's plenty covered there in your opening salvo, Kevin, and I'm sure we'll discuss most of that. Welcome everybody who's tuning in via Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. If you are on YouTube, get subscribing on there. It's free of charge, and we put out our daily bulletins. We also cover every match day, and we have special interview guests coming in on a regular basis. That's not something the Celtic State of Mind will stop doing. But we've had plenty to discuss since yesterday, Jim. Obviously, you were on the panel for the match day.
Yep.
And you were flying the flag for Neil Lennon, as a lot of people have been doing online. Do you think he was vindicated in his starting lineup yesterday?
Flying the flag for the Celtic manager, Paul. Always support the manager. So I'm flying the flag for the Celtic manager and Neil Lennon. He got it right. He got the 3 points, and that was the most important thing from yesterday. That he set his stall out. He made a decision. That's how he wanted to do it. He done it. Came off for him in the second half. He changed the formation to what everybody's been asking for, or more or less everybody. They went into a 3-5-2 attacking formation with the 2 strikers up front, which worked, taking players away, leaving gaps, as we said, for support coming from the midfield. But we got the 3 points and good goals as well. So I'm delighted for Neil Lennon, delighted for the Celtic support, but we've got a long haul in front of us, haven't we?
We do. I'm looking at the game, and this isn't a way of me criticising Neil Lennon. I think it certainly did change when we changed it a wee bit and brought on a striker at least. But again, I'm not criticising Neil Lennon because we got the right result. I thought the first half was a wee bit kind of flat again. 2 individual bits of brilliance by McGregor and Forrest for the goal. He changed it, and we had a lot more kind of energy when Klimala came on. I'd like to say at this point, I think I was pretty critical of Klimala yesterday, Kevin. Probably the big thing for me is I've been frustrated by the fact that we haven't played a striker. He's come on, and I still believe he had 2 good chances. I know, Kevin, that you were standing up for him on the first one, and I was critical, and I think I was a wee bit harsh. I was maybe a wee bit hasty in being so critical. I've watched the game back. I've been looking at other comments online, and I think maybe we do have something to work with Klimala. What was your view on him coming on at half time, Kevin?
I thought he done well, and I says this yesterday post-match when I sort of defended him, when you says that, when you did actually say that you reckoned that he didn't have the attributes to be a Celtic striker. I was impressed with his movement. I've always been impressed with his touch, how he looks on the ball as well. He looks comfortable on the ball. he made a nuisance of himself yesterday against the Motherwell back line when they really, for me, they had an easy time of it in the first 40 odd minutes yesterday, and Lennon was quick to point that out himself after the game, that he thought we were extremely flat in the first half. Again, that could be down to the European hangover. Strikers are going to be judged on goals, and it's very easy to judge Klimala on the 2 chances that he's had. I says the first one, the keeper gets that nick of the ball, which means he can't adjust his feet. I reckon the second one, he tried to be too smart, he tried to give the keeper the eyes, and he tried to put it in the opposite corner, and it didn't work. The keeper read it. Again, the shot wasn't too great because I still think it was too close to the goalkeeper. But is that a striker that's short of confidence? Because he never got a game on Wednesday night? Because the managers went with a creative midfielder or a false 9, if we want to use technical terms, rather than going for an out-and-out striker, after Klimala has actually been praised in the summer about the way that he's come back.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he wasn't ready. After getting praised, and he played him in pre-season, scored a few goals in the pre-season games. He came on against Hamilton and scored a great goal as well. So the lad is maybe a bit confused about where he actually stands now.
Yeah.
But for me, the 45 minutes that he gave us yesterday shows that we've definitely got something to work with. We've got a guy who knows his job, can make a nuisance of himself, and if Lee Griffiths, we spoke at length about Lee Griffiths yesterday, if Lee Griffiths is not going to be available, then I reckon Klimala is a good third choice striker.
Good third choice, so I was wrong.
I'm not saying that you were wrong, you might be
No, I'm saying
right.
that. I'm saying that. I think I probably was a bit harsh and a bit hasty on a guy who's he's still quite young, isn't he, as well? So
I don't think you were.
So Edouard and Ajeti, the big question we asked after the game, Kevin, was is that the dream partnership? Is Ajeti going to be partnering Edouard? And I guess when we're looking at the news that Shane Duffy's coming in, we're asking the question, will that be the catalyst maybe for a change in formation? And there's loads of great comments coming in via Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, and we'll get round to as many as possible. I still have this view, particularly like games like yesterday, like against Hamilton at home and against Ferencvaros even at home in Reykjavik, that you play with 3 at the back. I think Celtic are effective playing with 3 at back with the 2 wing backs, if you like to call them that, be that Frimpong, Forrest, El Yunusi, whoever else you decide to play out the left. You might have something to say about that later, Jim. Yeah. With 2 up front, and people might think that's old-fashioned. Well, I don't think it's as effective when Edouard's up there on his own. Ajeti looks like the type that might be a good partner for him. So what I think I'm asking is, Shane Duffy coming in, that's going to shore up the defence, but does it give us that added option of having the 3 centre halves and Duffy being that experienced guy, Jim, who might be able to shore up the defence?
It gives you the option there, shoring it up. It gives you the added confidence that you've got a player in there who has got more knowledge in his bag by playing than in the English Premiership. So he's got all that experience that he's going to bring up here, and it will help the 2 players run about him. If we go with the 3, indeed, if we do go with the 3, which I would like to see. So that helps us at the back, going for the 3-5-2. The midfield, where, with the new player that's been brought in, where are we going to play him?
That was brought up yesterday.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm looking at that, and a lot of people were saying yesterday probably Encham could drop out. Kevin, what's your thoughts? I'm a big fan of Encham. At this present time, Turnbull needs to work his way into that side for me.
Definitely, but I'm going to stick with what I said yesterday, that I can see Turnbull playing either an 8 or a 10, and he is going to get games in that position because of the number of games that we play. There is going to be injuries, there is going to be suspensions, so it's not maybe a case of working his way into the team, it's a case of waiting until he gets the chance to go into the team. At the moment, for me, I don't think Encham's done enough to stay in the team.
Right.
I don't think he's been... When Neil spoke about guys with their minds elsewhere, I think it was aimed at directly at Encham.
Do you think he's played like that though, Kevin? Because, I actually thought Encham played well against Ferencvaros. I know that Neil Lennon has stated that he thought the team played well, despite the result. I don't think Ncham's playing like a guy who's not interested.
He's maybe not contributing what I expected him to be. Maybe he's not involved in the game as much as what I expected him to be. I mean, you look at the game, we'll go back to the game against Reykjavik when he came on in the second half. He completely dominated the game, completely bossed that game. And maybe I've just had the notion that he was going to do that against Dundee United, that he was going to do that against Ferencváros, that he was going to do that against Motherwell. And my maybe unrealistic expectations of what I expect for Oliver Ntcham, because of his talent, I'm maybe doing him an injustice. I'm not noticing that he's having a good game because I've got such high expectations for him.
Do you think he's one of the best players in the Celtic team?
Yes, and I also do think he's one of the best. He's the best midfield player in Scotland on his day.
On his day?
On his day.
See, when we come up against the defence of, let's say, Kilmarnock, which you're looking at a player, a so-called creative player, to find a breach in a defence like that, or you're coming up against Dundee United, who, for me, played a very rigid backline as well, Kevin. I think for a player like Ntcham, sometimes when you're looking at the overall performance, because he's viewed to be a creative player, that he comes in for flack because he's not been able to find a way through. And I don't think he's particularly played all that badly. I mean, there was a moment in the game yesterday against Motherwell where the passage of play and the forward pass that he made, he's the only player on the pitch who was capable of doing it. So that's all it takes to turn a game. And I think in Ntcham, you've got a player there. If we were trying to buy him in the open market right now, if he was playing these performances maybe in the French league or down south, we would be struggling because his transfer fee would be so high. I think it would be a mistake to phase him out.
Possibly. But if you've got somebody in the team that can just pull that wee bit of magic out at any given point, and that leads to something really special, you're delighted. You're delighted that you're talking about that pass that he made yesterday. It was a good pass, it was very good. But in a game, if you pull that out more than once, twice, 3 times over, you become something a wee bit special. And you can have that trick in your book. You look at, let's go back to the left back. Sorry, let's go to the left back. I made a mistake yesterday. We actually saying Turnbull going to the left back. I didn't mean it. What I meant was Taylor to go into the back. I think you corrected me, Paul. You look at the young boy Taylor just now. What has he got that he could pull out and do something a wee bit special at this particular time? He's no got what Ntcham's got, has he?
I don't think he's quite at that level. I think
he's no.
In terms of creativity, he does have a killer pass. I do think he does have that.
Turnbull does?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Taylor.
Oh, Taylor?
Taylor.
I think Taylor is probably at a stage where he's seen more of the ball than he's ever seen in his professional career. And, every time you see him, you think to yourself, you need to get the cross in. He's not getting the distribution right for me.
No.
In an offensive manner.
And the reason I go back for Ntcham to him is coming down that left flank when we had Tierney. He done some things a wee bit special when he got that ball across, didn't he? And he made them count. At the moment, young Taylor hasn't been able to do that.
No.
He's not got that special bit in his bag at the moment to give us that killing cross or that killing pass that's going to have that bit of impact that's needed in a game. So Ntcham, is he the only player in there that we're looking at that's maybe got to something a wee bit special to come out?
I don't think so. I think Christie's on his day, El Yunusi. It's unfortunate that this season he's been a wee bit inconsistent. I would suggest El Yunusi because, even yesterday, after playing quite well the other night, he was almost anonymous yesterday. And going back to what you said about Ferencváros, you were expecting maybe a better performance from Ntcham. If you watch the goal leading up to Christie getting the ball, that was all Ntcham. So he did have an impact in the game. I just think the actual result, you tend to view it a wee bit differently, don't you? Because it was such a disappointing result. But Ntcham, I look at Rogic. He's only 27, Rogic.
Aye.
He's on his way out. It's the longest departure ever. The long goodbye, I think you could call it, right? He's still in your cupboard waiting for Shane Duffy, and Tommy Rogic's not out the building yet. And, you know, as much as I loved everything that Tommy Rogic did for Celtic and the amazing moments that he gave us, I would be far, far more unhappy if Ncham was leaving than Tommy Rogic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Ncham's got a lot to offer us.
He's still got a lot to offer, isn't he?
He definitely does. But you mentioned Turnbull, so let's talk about him, because we've not had a massive amount to say about David Turnbull. He was announced the day after the disappointment of going out of the Champions League. We've come up against Motherwell and he's not featured. He's been on the bench. I don't think he walks into the team. Very, very rarely should any player walk straight into the team, Jim. But where do you see him maybe breaking through?
Where do I see him? Well, at the moment, I don't see him going into the midfield role. But could he slip into the back? Could he slip into the back there to do a job in the meantime? Would you have more confidence in Turnbull slipping in there rather than Taylor?
No.
You wouldn't? No. Right, okay. So, where are you going to play him in midfield?
I've already said, Jim, that I do reckon that he will get opportunities because of the number of games that we play and because he doesn't need to adjust to the Scottish game. I think they're really harsh on Greg Taylor. I do understand his limitations, but when you look back at the game against Hamilton, I think he had 3 assists that game. His distribution and his final ball has got to be better. But we can say that about the whole Celtic team over the last 3 games. Well, the first half yesterday against Ferencváros, against Dundee United, we can say that our final ball has got to be better all over the pitch with everybody. With me, with David Turnbull, we've signed him as an energetic, creative midfielder who can play the 2 positions, who can play an 8 and a 10. Neil Lennon's chased the player for a year after a serious injury. He is going to get game time. He's definitely going to get game time because Neil Lennon has been desperate to get him at the club, and there's no settling-in period for him.
So,
but at left back, that's a Stephen Pearson case, ain't it?
Don't think so. If you look at him, you get him on, and he's such an attacking player. Do you not think if he was in a 4-4-2 formation, he could be an attacking fullback?
I just think you're taking something, you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole there. I do think he's a centre midfielder. He can play 2 positions extremely well in the centre of the midfield, and to try and convert him to a left back.
I'm not saying convert him.
But play him as a left-sided midfielder is folly.
So who do you take out then? But put him in. So if you had your choice just now, right, an elevator question to you. Who would you take out to put him in if he's got the opportunity to play tonight?
See, when you ask elevator questions, we should have a wee bit of elevator music.
Absolutely.
On the old
Can you
days.
get them in?
Probably.
Yeah. I'd quite like that. So what do you think? Who would you take out?
Who would I take out?
Yeah, put him in.
If going by where I see him getting games, he will replace Scott Brown in a couple of games. He'll replace Ryan Christie, and he could replace Callum McGregor as well. If any one of those 3 need a rest, he can step into any one of those 3 positions.
Any one of the 3.
So he's basically playing backup until such times as he's earned his place in his starting lineup. And I think when you look at the performance actually yesterday off McGregor, it was the best game he's played all season, Kevin. One of our guests, Paul Kelly, yesterday suggested, sometimes that's good. That's good actually for existing players. We go back to when Paddy Roberts signed and Jamesy Forrest played some fantastic stuff. Even though it's been pointed out more than once that Forrest has done more than okay over the last couple of seasons where there's been nobody breathing down his neck. But Turnbull, it's all about him pushing for a first team place. I mentioned Tommy Rogic. I think the long goodbye will definitely come at some point. Not sure when, Kevin. Give me your finest moment that Tommy Rogic gave us in a Celtic jersey?
It's got to be the obvious one. It's got to
Is
be
it obvious? It's one of a few.
I'll go to another one. Kilmarnock under Ronnie Dyler when he hit that wonder shot.
Yeah,
I flew down about 4 rows of seats because even though we probably wouldn't have lost the league to Aberdeen that year, I think if we hadn't won that day, it was going down to 4 points. And so to get that victory, to keep it at I think it was 6 or 7. What a strike.
The game changer.
I was right behind it, and as soon as it left his foot, I mean, it's magic. I mean, I don't know if any of the viewers have actually watched the programme, because he basically won Nike's Football Idol.
Did he?
A futsal player.
Did he?
And it is on YouTube.
That's brilliant.
And
Is that when he was a
futsal
teenager,
player.
yeah?
He was a futsal player. He was a 6-a-side player, and he had only played 11-a-side football for 3 seasons when Celtic signed him. So that's how you can see the close control of his feet and that.
He was a good servant, wasn't he?
7 years, Jim.
7 years. It's
No
fantastic. It's great. I used to like Rogic, and I liked him coming off the bench as well. The goal against Rangers was a magnificent goal as well, with that left peg. It was absolutely brilliant.
You heard it hitting the net.
The only thing he missing that day was the rain. When you see the ball hitting the back of the net and the rain just trickling.
You're
off
an old
the back of the
romantic.
net.
You're an old romantic, Jim, aren't you?
There is a famous one, Charlie Mulgrew and Neil Lennon's first Scottish Cup final, when he hits the free kick, and you see the rain.
Oh, the Motherwell game.
You see the rain.
Who scored the own goal that day for Motherwell? Were we at that game? No, that was another one.
That was the other one.
Craigan. I'm sure Craigan scored an OG that day.
That would have been nice.
What's good about players like that as well, early years now, they're all part of the history, and they'll become part of folklore for a talk in years to come. And it's brilliant. I think he's been brilliant. He's been great for us.
See, he's the type of player with the skill and the creativity and the individuality that he was born to play for Celtic.
Yeah, Celtic player. I get that.
The hoops fitted him well.
Essential, absolutely. We'll go to some of the comments being made on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We've got a loyal band of followers, which are, it's brilliant because you're tuning in.
Faithful
band of followers, and you're tuning in on social media to get involved. Gary Doonan, welcome back, Gary.
Yeah.
It's about time you came into the studio and was on this show and in person. It will be a catalyst for different formations for certain games.
Yep.
I agree with that 100%, because I don't think you can be too rigid in this modern day, Jim, where you've got to be able to look at a game and change it. Even 40 minutes into a game, change it if it's not working. Second half of a game, change the formation. If you can't get that breakthrough, you've got to be able to change it. And we've almost got the personnel to do that.
Of course. And he's right. You can't, but that's how I was throwing that wee grenade into you there about Turnbull. Tommy Burns said to me, he says, Jim, what's the position you played when younger? He says, left back, left side, left or right. But where do you play? I said, that's where I play, Tommy. He says, where would you play for me? I said, anywhere. He said, that's what I want you to say. He says, see, going forward, see if you can take that wee saying and say, I'll play anywhere. He says, where would you play for Celtic? I said, anywhere. He said, and that's what I try to install. So any of his old players, if they're listening and commenting, Tommy Burns, players would play anywhere for him. Mm-hmm. Tommy left mid, drop to left back, are you? Am I right? You should be able to play anywhere. See, as a professional footballer, you should be able to play in that part. Yes, when they become a wee bit as seasons pros and starting off, we'll get strikers, we'll get midfielders, we'll get defenders. But I believe that Neil Lennon put McGregor back to left back last year, didn't he?
Against Cluj.
Against Cluj. Didn't work right, did it?
No.
But it could have worked, but it didn't. So, but he still went in there and played the game. Mm-hmm. And all I'm saying is, with yourself there, it's a possibility to be able to use, and Gary's right, the rigidness can be moved about. You don't need that rigidness. You can adapt your team accordingly.
Yeah. The point you made with McGregor.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of occasions where it actually did work. Remember the cup final when Tierney broke his jaw?
Yeah.
And, McGregor was the guy that went to left back.
Right.
It nearly didn't work though, Paul, because he stood on the ball and Johnny Hayes ran through on goal.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's the best song that's ever been at Celtic Park for a long time. Johnny Hayes. Great lyrics, isn't it? Johnny Hayes.
Talking of music, somebody's actually pointed out, Francie WLU has pointed out via YouTube that you looked oblivious to the Happy Mondays reference that Kevin made.
I know.
Yeah, fine. Happy Mondays, Sean
Happy
Ryder.
Mondays.
Des.
Listen, I'm happy Monday, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday.
It is Monday, isn't it?
I
was track guy, yes.
I'm sorry, that's no Imagineer music. Not to say that it's no good.
It's fantastic.
Every type of music's good for every type of listener.
Oh, the Happy Mondays for me. I remember going back. I actually went to Manchester to see them in the 1990s, Kev. And, when I was there, you could see, like in the front, no backstage, but the kind of front side stage was Schmeichel and David Beckham standing watching us at the Manchester Evening News Arena.
You're talking about the Happy Mondays. I remember the song I Don't Like Mondays.
That's right.
The Boomtown Rats.
Geldof.
I remember when that first came out. Paul, know what I'd like to say? That yesterday's viewers was 20,125.
Yeah.
That is
Across all
phenomenal.
platforms.
That is absolutely brilliant.
That is.
So the viewers and the listeners are tuning in, and it's great. Absolutely brilliant.
It is tremendous, Jim, and you know it's obviously a lot of that is down to these guys that are tuning in.
What's the people out there, eh?
The bulletins, live and interactive.
Yeah.
This season we've started off live and interactive. We're going to keep it going all the way through the season.
Yeah.
We have the kind of facility here at the studio that if something happens up in Sky Sports on the wall there, we can actually go live to get your views on it.
Yeah.
You know, so if there's a breaking story, we'll be breaking with a bulletin. We'll have our daily bulletins on match day stuff, and it's just great. So thanks everybody for tuning in. That's one of our first kind of targets, get up to 20,000 a day, and then we can keep pushing it from there. Joe Porter, welcome back, Joe. You're commenting via YouTube. People being blinded by Duffy, says Joe. Yes, he's a fan, and yes, he has EPL experience, but he had absolutely no pace. Now, see, we're looking at a guy who goes into the middle of that defence, and we're looking for him to, I described it as shoring up a defence. When you look at Julian and Ayer, you know, it's not the worst partnership in the world, is it? I keep going back to this, Kevin. I know that Lennon had kind of split it up after the Kelly game. I think it's a fairly decent partnership that they two guys have got. What I do feel, though, is that we're more effective with three at the back, and it would be good to have the experience. So could you play somebody in there with a lack of pace when you've got somebody like Ayer? Because Ayer has got pace. Ayer's fast.
Julian's quite quick as well.
Yeah.
He's got a fair stride on him. With Duffy, I must admit I haven't seen a lot of Duffy, but I understand what Joe's saying there. What really doesn't worry me, but intrigues me that every journalist calls him no nonsense. Does that just make him right away a target for Scottish referees?
Well, again, no, sometimes it's just, you know, people, it's lazy to say that. It's like when people say he's a Rolls Royce of a defender. What does that mean? That's lazy, you know, or he's got a cultured left foot. You never hear anybody with a cultured right foot. So no, you know, I don't subscribe to that. I really don't.
It's just that we hear that he's like Jim probably maybe knows a bit more about him than me. We hear that he's a no-nonsense, tough centre back who
I
does
just
the
think
simple
Julian
thing.
Dix when I hear
and
that.
I'm like, well, do we really want a no-nonsense, tough centre back? Are we actually only buying a no-nonsense, tough centre back because we reckon that Julian can't handle big strikers? Just to have a physical presence.
For long enough, you said we need a big Eastern Bloc defender with a skinhead, and we had one.
We had one.
Jozo Simunovic, right? We had one, and we've let him leave. Now, I know he was, listen, I'm not saying I regret that. I think we've let him leave, we've let Johnny Hayes leave, and that was the right move.
It's gone.
But a no-nonsense defender, I think we need more than that, especially when we're looking at European performances. We need more than a no-nonsense defender, because I just think a no-nonsense defender, somebody that wins a lot of headers and, you know, boots the ball up the park. We've got two guys there that like to play football, and Julian and Ayer.
Have you got to play ugly as well sometimes?
Declan Gallagher's a no-nonsense defender.
You got to play ugly. You got to play ugly, and you want him in there as a presence. He is going to be that presence with the stature in there and the balance that he's controlling. He's controlling that in run about him. He's controlling with his experience. He's saying to his two guys, listen, we're going over to the right, we're going over together. We're going over to the left, we're going over together. We don't want to be too wide and we're back three. We want to keep it tight. We want to be talking to the centre mid who's going to drop in when we're defending to make it a 4, or bring another person in to make it a 5. That could be the right mid, or it could be the left mid. You've got a guy in there who is going to be a captain at the back, captain and looking at everything round about him, help him at the back to make those other players better as well round about him. So the presence part, yes, he might not be the fastest, but the presence part is very, very important in there. The stability in there is important, and the leadership is important. That's a quality. Their qualities in themselves, like speed is. Speed's a quality. Relaxing at the back is a quality. Relaxing your players round about you is a quality. Being an overall professional round about and reading the game and how it should be read, I think that's what Shane Duffy will bring. He might not bring that extra pace coming for the back, so therefore his job at the back is there to sit. And you're rightfully saying that Julian can come forward, Ayer can come, they can drop out as well. So I would be quite happy with Duffy being in there as a presence and a leader.
Who was the last player you would describe, the last centre half we had, Kevin, as a no-nonsense defender? Who's the last centre half we've had that you would describe as a no-nonsense? Stephen McManus?
Stephen McManus?
Mastorovic.
Yep.
Virgil. He's a no-nonsense centre-half, but not in the common term of a no-nonsense centre-half.
I would never describe Van Dijk as not a no-nonsense centre-half.
No.
I just get a vision of somebody who likes to put their toe through the ball, somebody who's sliding about winning headers. I don't know if that's what Shane Duffy is, to be honest.
I don't know.
I certainly wouldn't describe Virgil van Dijk as that, because that guy was just, you could have played him anywhere. You could have played him left back, right wing, anywhere.
Anywhere in that back four. In a back three, back four, back five, anywhere. Virgil van Dijk is like Sam Cooke. Smooth, cool, operator.
Yeah, he's a smooth operator.
He's smooth, but he makes the game look slow. He makes it look slow by the way that he picks the ball up. It's like Sam Cooke singing a song. It's so easy done. He puts it out. But Big Van Dijk, he's a Rolls Royce. But don't forget, he learnt his trade. He helped part of his trade at Celtic that made him the better player. Then he goes up, and he's nominated to be one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
It's the way that he goes about his business. Look at the way that he organises, Paul. Look at the way that he conducts the orchestra. He's a conductor for the back. He doesn't really break sweat. You don't think he does, but he does.
It takes effort to make it look effortless.
Absolutely. He is like water, my friend. He just flows.
We've gone through happy Mondays to Sam Cooke.
To Bruce Lee.
Where else?
Do you like that?
Glasgow Rebel via YouTube. Good afternoon, lads. Thanks for sharing your cold. I caught it today. That was a virtual cold on Friday. That's why I was sitting in this room myself.
But that's how you yourself
struggling. But I went and I did it.
And the room's all been cleansed down as well.
Can
Paul?
I just ask something before you go to another comment, Paul? Did Sam Cooke not get shot?
What's that got to do with anything?
Did he not get shot in a
No, he got assassinated in Memphis.
Did he?
But
that's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
Shane Duffy will be an amazing player to bring into the squad.
There you go.
We've spoken to Spencer Vignes, who is the Brighton and Hove Albion fan. He's written books on the club. He's been on this podcast, and he tells us Shane Duffy's what you're looking for. He needs a wee bit of love. He needs that at this moment in time. He's kind of been given a cold shoulder down there, isn't he, by the manager? So, I'm not knocking him. I just don't like the terminology of a no-nonsense, because I don't think a no-nonsense defender is what we need. I honestly don't think that is what we need.
No.
And, I think what we're looking for, you go back to, let's say, Martin O'Neill's time, the centre-halves he had, and he was buying in Valharan, and and he was buying in Baldi. Prior to him, Mialbi, who was utilised by O'Neill, but he was bought in by Wenger. Brilliant centre-halves.
Absolutely. Stephen made a good point yesterday. And Stevie, he played at the back. Baldi. Bobo's going to get you. That was the cry, wasn't it?
It was.
That was the cry. Bobo Baldi had a presence. He had a presence. Me and Stevie were talking on the way home yesterday. He said, do you remember, Sammy, the time against Rangers, he was just himself and he walked out and he actually had his shirt off.
Oh, he was a unit.
He was a unit. So you've got that unit there in front of you and you know you can play a wee bit as well. You're going, by the way, I maybe not want to go near him.
So we used to pull the socks up above his knees.
I know.
Made him look even bigger.
Aye.
I mean, Omar Colley, that's the name you mentioned the other day, Kevin. Sampdoria, €8.5 million. I guess that deal's dead then if we're looking to bring in Shane Duffy.
Well, let's have a wee look at this. If we're bringing in Shane Duffy on loan only, yesterday it looked like it might have been permanent, it might have been 4 years, but the person who's reported it's a loan deal is usually spot on when it comes to Celtic.
Stephen McGowan.
That's Stephen McGowan,
yeah.
for the Daily Mail. He's usually spot on. If we lose a centre half, and I'm probably looking at big hire at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Omar Colley is an actual goer, as
Right.
well as Shane
So you're
Duffy.
looking at that, as Ayer
Only
out, Ayer
if
out.
Ayer leaves.
Right, okay.
I had a look. I love looking at Sampdoria's badge. It looks like the wee sailor badge. You know the one that I'm on about. It looks like the guy for Gorillas, but it's actually a sailor called John Baptiste. Because do you know a port town and that. Right, forget about my Italian football. Get back to
No, but Italian football, Kevin, going back to the 90s was a big thing, and we all had a wee kind of interest, if sometimes a passing interest in Italian football. Remember when Channel 4 covered it? So
That's right.
not fair play.
I text my friend who watches a lot of Italian football, and I says I haven't really seen much of this Omar Colley. And he says to me, he's a big lanky guy at the back with the telescopic legs.
All right.
And as soon as he says that, I know the
Bobo.
I know the player that you're on about. There is a YouTube video. If that's your thing, go and watch the YouTube video. And he makes very, very good interceptions, and he's decent in there. So it's a lot of money. And Sampdoria paid €8 million for him last summer for Ghent. So if we're going to get him, we're going to need to spend more, and the deal has got to be more than €8 million.
Well, the thing, Kevin, that we've been discussing is the change in tact when it comes to how we've done our business. And yes, I was critical the other night after the game when I said about the board getting deals over the line, because that's their job. It's not Neil Lennon's job to do that part of it. But we did say that the calibre of player that we brought in this pre-season and at the beginning of the season has been of a higher calibre. There was a great point online, and I think it might have been Stevie Ray that made it, in relation to how Ajax are bringing players in for about €10 million and then selling them for 40 and 50 million euros. And the bit that we've never got right, because we've always cashed in a big way with your Van Dijks and Wanyamas, etc., is we've never then gone out and bought your £10 million player or your £8.5 million player. Perhaps that is what we're looking to do in terms of the Ayer deal, where maybe, listen, don't shoot the messenger, the quoted fee's 27 million, isn't it, from AC Milan? If you get that money in and then you spend the best part of 10 million, so it is a completely different approach, but not one that I would argue with, to be fair.
Absolutely. But you're saying you were critical the other night there. But look, that game's in the past. That's gone, and you've got to look to the present and the future now. But just to go back on that, we're dragging our heels. So do you think we should have been down to Mr. Bloom and said, there you are, much are you wanting for Shane Duffy? There it is. There's the figure. There's that figure there. We're not going to drag our heels. We want this player just now. Maybe we did drag our heels. Going down to speak to Mr. Bloom. Maybe we did. But we've got to learn from that, haven't we, Paul? And say, if we want a player and we really want him, we've got to push the boat out that wee bit extra. And it's okay as maybe saying that... you know what, there's that £12 million player, he's sitting on the bench, or there's that £10 million player sitting on the bench. Let's go and get him. Then the fans think, he's a £15 million player, he's a £10 million player. No, he's only worth the value that you buy him for. So, going forward, the player that we're talking about there, if we want him, let's go and get him and make him ours without hesitation.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with that, Jim, because gone are the days, and I think Kevin's spoken about this at length, of us picking up Wanyama for 900 grand
they're
from
gone.
Belgian football, or Van Dijk from the Netherlands for what, £2.5 million at the time. I think those days are gone, because those markets now, the English Premiership and various other leagues are now tapping into these markets.
Including Edward.
They're tapping into these markets.
Aye, including Edward. What did we get Edward for?
PSG 9 million.
9 million.
£9 million. I mean, there's always going to be a plethora of players down at these academies down in England, Kevin, that, you know, that's where end-champs come from. You know, Boyata, he was, what age was he when we signed him? People forgot
24.
how old. 24,
was
played
24.
very little football. There's a lot of these guys who are just under the surface down in England and all across the big leagues now. I mean, Bayern Munich are buying up talent. We can see it. They're coming and buying players or signing players anyway from Celtic.
What's good is the young guys here.
You pointed at Kevin there.
Thanks, Jim, thanks.
The young guys and the other young guys that you got on the show, they're fantastic with the stats. They've got all the stats. They've got the knowledge about this, where this player is, where that player is. They've got great knowledge. But now, the Celtic board have got to come up and say, here, on a worldwide basis, we've got this player at 3 million, we'll get that player there, or that player there. As we spoke about yesterday, getting the right players to come in. The £600,000 players, £900,000 players, they're going to be harder to get, to turn them into 20 million and £30 million players now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's exceptions. Frimpong, I think, has been a real find, a real nugget in amongst that, you know. When he signed, you thought the boy from Man United was going to be the boy that broke through. He's now at Tranmere.
Luca Connell as well,
Yep.
who played well in a half in pre-season. What Jim?
But he's become Messi overnight when we're looking for a creative player,
Definitely,
Kevin.
that was maybe just more to do with the
You know?
hair, that, more than anything. But
You know, if you're struggling for creativity, then people are starting to demand that Luca Connell's going in. Neil Lennon watches these guys at training every day, and he'll know.
Of course.
You know, so there's loads of comments coming in Facebook, and we have a comment. I think 352 is the way forward. Eduard Ayeti up top, just needs someone in left wing back to match Frimpong on the right. I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't think we've got that balance quite right yet, and I don't think Frimpong's anywhere near being a first pick, because the only way I would maybe pick him from the beginning is if you're dropping El Yunusi and playing Forrest out left, and you're playing Frimpong out right.
if you're playing,
That's where he's effective.
If you just let me jump
On
in
you
here,
go,
Jim,
on, carry on.
If you play Frimpong as a right wing back, you've got to be sure that your two sitting midfielders are going to cover, are going to do a defensive job.
Yeah.
You've got to ensure that's going to happen.
And then the question is it worth it for what he gives you offensively? And I would say yes. When you see the way that he can, you know, carve open a defence, Kevin.
Has Brown got the legs to cover that?
No, but when it be Brown, Brown's already, he's already sitting, excuse me, in the centre mid row. He's sitting in there. So the right mid and the left mid, it really depends how the game's flowing, and he's coming up where he's going to sit to cover for him in there. But if you look at Frimpong when he came on yesterday, you would go, wow, that's a fantastic performance that you've gave us since you're playing here. You would have him starting, but could you rely on him? Could you rely on him to be up and back in defence? At this time, I don't think we could. But going forward, definitely. And when he's up in that final third, taking the kickings, if he's got to take them, and it gains more ground for us to get our free kicks in, to gain the free kicks going into the box. So I think he'll be good at that, because he will get pulled down more and more. And if he gets pulled down even round about the 18-yard box, and I think he could take it. I think he could become a better player for that as well. So if he's driving down and he's delivering into that box, he's done his job, hasn't he? But I liked Frimpong yesterday.
Do you think Frimpong benefited yesterday from having El Hamed on the right hand side behind him? And he knew El Hamed was there.
Was cover? I think he did. I think he did. But what I seen yesterday was he was oozing confidence. And it was as if the message he's been told to him, go and take them on. Go up there and penetrate in their last third of the park and create for us. And that's what I thought. He looked very energetic. He looked he rejuvenated. He looked as if he wanted to play. He looked as if he wanted to impress. And that's what I liked about him yesterday, Paul.
A wee bit more of what you've seen as his natural ability when he first came
absolutely.
in has been evident yesterday.
Aye.
And during the week when he came on, I think
Definitely.
he showed a bit of that. And the question would always be, where do you play him? Because I think defensively suspect, like you say,
Aye.
Kevin. We've got a few great comments coming in, and a certain Stephen Mullen, who was on yesterday.
Yeah.
I hope you're feeling better, Stephen. Before the two clubs sit down, they should know everything involved in the deal through the agent, fee, wages or loan fee. Players decide on the deal. So, I mean, the thing with Duffy, I think, that I would be concerned that, Kevin, is you put him in as this no-nonsense type, and you've got two ball-playing defenders around about him. But your suggestion might make sense that perhaps Ayer is still someone that we might lose. And if so, you're then going into the market at 8.5 million and you're dipping into Serie A at that stage. Lawrence Connolly, thanks for getting involved via Facebook. Without a reserve league, players like Frimpong and Taylor need to be playing first team games to improve defensively. I think it's a great shout. Got a wee visitor behind you there. For everybody who thinks that's a door, it's actually a window. There you go. He was wearing a Celtic top though. Welcome to the show, young man.
Well, we'll actually get our own personal crash here as well.
We do, yeah, we've got a crest if you want to visit. So without a reserve league, we bang on about this reserve league all the time, Jim. Maybe I'm old fashioned.
No, you're not.
But I go on about the reserve league all the time. I think we miss it.
Definitely. But we've got to we've got to do something with that league. We've got to get these players playing. And I think we stated before, guys, in a previous show, that Celtic's got friends out there in various clubs where they would quite gladly take on players to give them game time. Because it's so important. It's so important for these young players that's coming up and breaking through, and the season pros, when maybe they're coming back from maybe a slight injury or an injury, that they're getting back in and they're playing. Game time gains experience.
Yes.
You've got years' experience in youth football, Jim. For me, personal point of view, is I used to love going to watch the reserve games, because the reserve Hearts used to play in Stirling, so I would go and watch Celtic when they played Hearts. St Johnstone played at the Rex in Alloa, so when Celtic were playing them, I would go along there, Yeah. And I've watched some development games, and for me, the development games haven't got the same intensity as what the reserve games had.
They haven't, and
Maybe that's just a simple view of it.
No, but it's a good view. It's a good view. It's an honest view. We grew up that if Celtic was playing away, because you couldn't afford to go to the away games when we were younger, you would go down to Celtic Park on a Saturday afternoon and you would watch the reserves. So at that time, that would have been players like coming through for your book, Paul.
Yeah.
Which is the Quality Street Gang.
That's right, yeah.
And I don't think we speak enough about your book and books. No, I don't. I think, you've got you've got those books out, and hopefully the viewers go and look and read at these books, and with the knowledge that's been put in there and the historical facts in there as well, the books that you've written. So to date, Paul, before I come back on this, you've written the Quality Street book.
Yes.
You've written the Neil and Mockin book. You've written the Andy Lynch book. You're currently waiting finalisation for the Celtic jersey book.
That has consumed me for 5 years, Jim.
5 years, but that's okay.
I'm going into retirement once that one's signed
But that's
off.
all right. And is that it?
There's a few others in the
Pipeline.
In the works.
So that's good. So that brought me on to be thinking about the reserves. Me and a guy called Joyce, me and John Joyce, we go to Youth Cup, SYFA Youth Cup finals. We go to Championship games, second division games, because it's good to watch. And these players could fit in
to these different teams and getting the experience. That way you're watching, you're seeing that they're developing, they're learning how to cope with coming away as well. Maybe the comfort that they've got at a club. They come away and they play with these other teams and they say, here, this is a real life. So they could come back better players, knowing that they want to be even hungrier to get into the first team. It used to work in the past. Could it still work? I think it could.
It's worked with a lot of great Celtic players. Even you look at that team we've got at the moment, I know Tommy Rogic's on his way out. We used a loan deal for Tommy Rogic to get first team experience. Callum McGregor, Chris Ayer, Ryan Christie. But Stephen Mullen wants to know, Jim, what's in Marty's memo today?
By the way,
it's a wee dig. It's an indirect free kick.
I know. There's nothing in it today, and there was nothing in it yesterday. I didn't have any memos for anybody. I love Stevie to death. He's a good guy, and he's been very, very good for the show. He does a great job at St Roch's. Before he came here, he was away yesterday. He was away to Rock Talk, making sure everybody was okay. He works hard. Nothing but compliments for Stephen. I defended Neil Lennon. He's a Celtic manager. I read, and I've looked, and I've thought, Celtic gain hashtags, Lennon must go. Celtic fans, sorry, gain hashtags, Lennon must go. And we've got to we've all got to try and get behind each other. And that's the message I was trying to put out yesterday, Paul. I think if you were to look back in the tapes from yesterday, nobody criticised any individual. We just tried to keep a complete harmony amongst ourselves going forward, because we've got many people out there who would like to knock us at this particular time and take us off the track. But Stevie, I don't have any memos today.
No newsletters.
No newsletters.
Listen, what you say there, Jim, just going back to what you said there about people are looking to knock Celtic. I know that. I told you a wee story before we started today. Just an experience I had of that this morning. People are really ready and willing to knock Celtic in this season of all seasons. And I think there was a lot of criticism, Kevin Graham, because I know you keep an eye on social media as well. There's a lot of criticism levied at a lot of the kind of Celtic outlets, because it was almost as if, how dare you become part of this problem we have with the mainstream media? You're criticising the club. There's a balance to be struck. So after the game against Ferencvaros, Kevin, I came in for criticism for criticising Neil Lennon. There's a balance to be struck, because you can't always think everything's sweetness and light and come out and say that, because that you then become part of a different problem, and that different problem is you're walking about with your eyes closed. There's fans of other clubs in Scotland who pretend everything's fine and dandy until it's too late and the club go bust.
Yeah.
I'm not saying financially Celtic are anywhere near a position like that. You can't ignore what's in front of you by just continually putting videos together to say, we are Celtic supporters, faithful through and through, and Lenny we trust, etc., etc. And I've seen it, and something inside so strong, let's get the memes out every time we get beat and somebody's blaming Lennon. I find that preposterous. You've got to be able to take criticism on the chin.
We're playing a sport where you're going to lose games.
Yeah.
And when that happens, somebody is going to get the blame for losing those games. And it doesn't mean that if your opinion is Neil Lennon was at fault for us going out the Champions League, it doesn't mean that you don't support Neil Lennon. You're just pointing out a fact. We're like a big family. There's going to be
dysfunctional at times.
But dysfunctional, yes. We're going to go home tonight, and whether it's you're cooking the tea or something like that, your wife might say, you're not doing that right. It doesn't mean that she doesn't love you. She's just saying that you're not cooking the tea right.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Thanks for that wee stroke of the ego. Thank you.
That was quite good, actually.
What you're saying there is right. At no point have I ever said Lennon out, sacked the board, sacked Neil Lennon. I've never said any of that.
No, you haven't.
I've criticised him because I thought his selection was wrong. But
there's nothing wrong with criticism. It's constructive criticism.
But I'm a Neil Lennon fan. I've always been a Neil Lennon fan, but I've had a lot of messages, you're sticking the boot in. You know, we've got enough people doing that.
As Jim says there, it was constructive criticism.
Yeah.
You weren't saying that he looks dishevelled. You weren't saying that the tracksuit doesn't
That's
fit
right.
him. You weren't saying
I never
that.
would.
You were making a comment going, I think he put out the wrong team.
You and Paul,
that's constructive.
you and Paul were speaking, and no disrespect to anybody that runs the media organisations or media shows similar to this over podcasts, and we might be unique here going out in a live stream. If people are just mentioning other things to get clicks, to get this, whatever it's called these days, to get clicks, to get their viewing figures up, good luck to them. But what we've got here, the team that comes in and supports you here, Paul, to guys like Kevin, Colin, Stephen, and others, Lawrence, and other guys that's out there behind the scenes that people don't actually see at the moment. What they've got is passion. They speak with passion. They write with passion, and it means a lot. It means a lot to them. We didn't say any derogatory words against anyone yesterday or previous before that. Even after the game, we were disappointed. Neil, after the game, if you're in a game and you lose that game, your emotions are high. You come out and you say things and you get it off your chest because you're disappointed. There's ways to do it. That's the only part with Neil the other night. Take care of business inside the dressing room and get it sorted. And I think that was the majority of our thoughts run about here. Yesterday we spoke about all the different roles within Celtic. Not to criticise anybody individually, to show everybody that we're going to have a togetherness as of now to move forward and sort any problems that's got to be sorted. And that's what I think Neil and his team have done. They sorted it yesterday. We've now got the platform of the 3 points and we bounce on for that. But you can criticise Neil Lennon, Paul. Kevin can criticise him, but we still back him, don't we?
Always back
There
Neil
you go.
Lennon.
Definitely.
I've always backed Neil Lennon. There's a lot of good messages coming through actually, so we'll run through some of these. Someone's suggesting that in fact there's a couple of comments on young Calvin Miller, who had been kind of converted to left back, and I think he was freed there at the end of last season.
He was up playing last week with Plymouth against Rangers.
As a trialist, was he?
As a trialist, aye, in a close game up at the Murray Park or
The Hummel Sports Direct.
or Hummel or whatever it's called. Sorry, but I'm not being derogatory against the sports complex, because I've got friends who work within different areas of football. Mm-hmm. But he was up there and he done quite well. He done very well. So that's a disappointment, isn't it? That's no worked out, because as a youth player he done exceptionally well. Maybe he lost his way a wee bit.
That does happen.
Maybe he lost his way a wee bit, and he's coming back in. Mm-hmm. He's coming back into the fold. But there's other things that he can work on.
Just another wee thing I was going to say, but my final point on the reserve league as well, Jim. The other area that we could work on, and I mentioned before that there was definitely talks between Celtic and Dunfermline about a partnership whereby we farmed out, going back to the old farming out of players. I think it was 5 players at any given time to Dunfermline.
You're right.
So there was a not a deal, but there was discussions ongoing a couple of seasons ago where we would give them 5 young players who would then be part of the first team squad. But I think when I was speaking to Graham Diamond about this, and Graham's obviously the sporting director at Clyde FC, he said that's all fair and well, so you're getting the young guys at Celtic a game. but then Dunfermline are not buying the 5 players they would have normally bought that season. So then what's happening is the young guys from maybe the bigger clubs are maybe edging some of the other players out of the game. Where do they go? I think that's what Graham Diamond's point was. So, you know, let's say you had 5 teams with deals like that, 25 young guys going to the lower leagues. Where does the 25 players go that they would have signed had they not had this influx of young guys? And I think that was the issue that maybe some of the smaller, more provincial clubs had. What happens to the 25, 30 players who would have had a club?
It's a domino effect, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a complete domino effect. And Graham Diamond, who I've worked with, Graham's an excellent coach. He's obviously director of football at Clyde, and brilliant for him. But Graham's a guy that he's good to have round, because you can learn. You can learn from him. His knowledge is good. His involvement with you is good. His absolute way of thinking is to give, and hopefully give, younger players the opportunity to come through and break through into first team. So I understand what he's saying. If you give 5 players here, 5 players there, or where do you get the young players today to slot right into a team without the manager having the pressure on them to win games? Because it's a livelihood for the managers of these lower division clubs. So is he really going to take the chance on the younger players to lose his job, or does he want to bring in and say Celtic, Aberdeen, Rangers, or Hibs or Hearts, there's these players in more experienced than what I've got? Unfortunately, he's going to take in the more experienced players because it helps save him his job.
No, you're right, and play it safe.
Play it safe.
So it's a difficult situation, isn't it? And how to introduce these young guys into the team.
But I'd like to get Graham back in again, Paul, and have another wee talk on various things on the football front with him.
Oh, he's always welcome, isn't he, Graham? He was a great guest when he came in. But I think there is a difficulty, and now we're just taking it for granted. If you ever need a player, you just go and buy a player. You know, in the past, you would have had this conveyor belt of youth players coming through, wouldn't you? You'd be looking at who's next in line at left back, who's next in line at right back.
For me, you should always look within first. If you're looking for any solutions, you should always look at within first. But for me,
you're right, Kev. You're right. But if they're looking and there's nothing, looking within and there's nothing there.
That's right. If they're not ready, because I think it'll basically be a case. And Jim, you've had experience within a club of the first team manager going to, let's say, the head of development and saying, right, who you got ready for me? First team ready. Who you got that I can put in that first team? And if that answer is none, nobody at the moment, Neil, or it might take 6 months before X, Y, or Z are ready. Neil goes back because he's back at the drawing board because nobody's ready. And I know Martin O'Neill approached it like that as well.
That's how we done it. But
as long as that question gets asked,
it does get asked. It really does get asked. I mean, you look at the coaches there at Celtic, the youth coaches as well, under Chris McCart. They're looking at all the players that they've got, and they're working tirelessly to say, who can we put forward? Who do we think we can put in there? And he's going to be fine. They would go to Neil Lennon and say, we think this player here. Neil Lennon would go, I don't think he's ready yet. So they all talk about it. That's what I'm talking about, the team. The whole team. Everybody's involved. You're right, look within to see what you've got within your whole squad. Not just everything within the club. But there's nothing there at the moment, is there?
It takes me back to the point I keep bringing up, Jim. Where's our goal-scoring striker coming through the ranks? We used to produce them for fun, you know, right back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, right into the 80s with Charlie. Where's our next golden kid coming through who scores goals? And we've got Henrik Larsson, who's going to be the striker coach at Barca. I tipped him for the strikers coach at Celtic. Nobody listened to me. Obviously, Lenny doesn't listen to the show.
Aye, but
All it would have taken was a wee text message, and Hartson would have, you know, Larson. I said Hartson, that was a wee Freudian slip. I've had that discussion with Big John, but he would have walked over broken glass to come back.
Of course. So Celtic's loss is Barcelona's gain.
I think so.
You know, I think so. I think Henrik Larsson will do a fantastic job there, working with the strikers. But we have got to look at developing strikers. Yeah.
And again, a big part of that, going back to what Kevin said, you actually knew. You knew underneath that first team who the next group of players were that were coming through when you had that reserve league.
Yeah.
It's a wee bit more kind of fractured now, isn't it? With such a lack of games getting played with the development players. There's a few comments coming in, name-checking Jack Aitchison, almost a blast from the past. You know, he's a young kid, but, you know, he made his debut at 16 years of age, scored in his debut. Am I right in saying it was in Dyler's last game?
Against Motherwell,
7-0 game?
7-0.
Where
is he now? Is he still at the club?
He's still at the club. He went down to Forest Green Rovers or Rangers Rovers last season, scored a few, and then, you know, I don't know if they moved him position at that stage. He looked to be a goal scorer, but he's not anywhere near the first team squad.
He's not anywhere near their first team squad, and he hasn't. We don't know if he probably needs to go out on loan again. But he's not a name that's been mentioned about going out on loan.
Gary Doonan, who obviously has got a great knowledge of what's happening around about the Celtic youth team, is saying that Cameron Harper and Adam Brooks are your two strikers for that level.
Cameron Harper's American, though. Am I right when saying that? So is it another? Maybe no Scottish, or we just want to bring through a striker.
No, but I mean, he would still class as being a homegrown, even though we've maybe got him young and brought him over. You know, he'd still be a homegrown. Because some people do mention Tony Watt, but we bought Tony Watt from Airdrie, didn't we?
Yeah.
And to be fair, you couldn't class Tony as a prolific goal scorer for Celtic.
No.
You know, if you look at the games and the goals that he scored, and you know, people are mentioning as well, Karamoko Dembele is a youth player. I think he's not a striker, though, is he? He's not an out striker. And obviously he's a name that's been mentioned in the podcast over the last couple of weeks as potentially having asked for a transfer from the club. So I've got to say, maybe I was a wee bit blunt last week. I would be disappointed if that young kid left Celtic, because I think we've dedicated a lot of time, a lot of years into his development, and you want to see an end product. I was disappointed in Islam Farouz. I was disappointed in, you know, the late Liam Miller, because, you know, the fact was Celtic had spent a lot of time in his development, and I wanted to see the finished article in the hoops. And we got a glimpse at William Miller, didn't we? And then he went down to Manchester United.
I would be more disappointed if Dembele left, if not done a Liam Miller, but if he had a good season with Celtic, then left, then without maybe giving us a couple of years. But the fact that he's had fleeting first team appearances, he's 17-year-old, we can still see flaws in his game. Yeah. I'm going, if he's got an agent that's telling him he's better off elsewhere, then let him go.
Comes down to the strength of the player eventually, and it's difficult when you're 17.
Definitely.
And obviously Farouz was even younger, I think, when he got his new agent. You know, Calhoun to the new agent. It's difficult because they're dangling that carrot of English Premiership wages, aren't they? And it's difficult for the kids, but it can effectively ruin them. Not everybody is a Billy Gilmour in that scenario. He's class. He's class, and he's developing brilliantly. But a lot more of them end up on the scrap heap.
Glasgow Cup final. Glasgow Cup final. He was outstanding. He was absolutely outstanding. He was outstanding in that game, and he went away. But what the difference is with young Gilmour, he's toed the line, and he wants to play football, and he is working hard at his game down south. You look at young Dembele. Who would you take out to put him in?
No one.
So
Frimpong's ahead of him, and he's the second choice for me in that area of the field.
So his agent's upset. He's upset because he's not getting the game. Does that make him an individual as a young player, or does that make him a team player with saying, you know what, I want to be part of this, I need to work harder to get in this team can I see myself getting into this team? The answer's no. So, do you think with him going down south, Karamoko, Dembele going down south, that he's going to be guaranteed first team football?
No.
Personally, I don't think so.
He's going back into a development.
Of course
squad.
he is.
If he's going
squad.
if he's going to a Man City or Chelsea, or if he fancies going to Germany, like a couple of his teammates have done, he's going into their development squads.
Absolutely.
He's nowhere near a first team squad.
Who would you, at the top of your head, no my elevator question, Paul, I don't want you playing that music, but who would you take out and out to put Dembele in it?
I wouldn't take anyone.
Nobody.
I wouldn't take anyone to give him a game.
So, we upset all the Celtic fans with putting him in to keep him happy, or do we keep everybody happy with playing the team, the five that we've got at the moment across the midfield? Dembele, if he doesn't want to be there as a young lad, he's got to seriously think what he's doing.
Let me try and take it from a different angle then. You're Dembele, you're 17, you've been lauded for years and years as the next big thing at Celtic Park, right? The club have put in a lot of the yards for him, absolutely no doubt about it. But he's not playing any games, Jim. So he's not playing for the first team, which means he's not playing. Because he's not going to be playing your 13 development games, I think it is, correct me if I'm wrong, that Celtic played last year.
Yeah.
He's maybe at the stage at 17 where he sees that as a backward step if he was to go play a development. And you know what, it might be a backward step for his development if he was to go and play with other kids at 17. So I think it's actually a very difficult situation to be in for Neil Lennon. It's not helped when the agents start to then infiltrate the thought process of young Dembele and say, you should be doing this, you should be earning that, because he isn't ready for the first team. You're absolutely spot on. He sat on the bench against Hearts Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he sat on the bench, didn't he? He was on the bench that day. So it's not as if he's not part of the plans. He's there or thereabouts, and you maybe should say to him, you'll be happy with 8, 9, 10 first team appearances this season. But obviously he's had his head turned. But from his development perspective, it's not ideal to play no games.
It isn't, but earlier on in the show, and I think today's show is a show with a wee bit of difference. It's nice and relaxed and talking here. Last week was a complete and utter week with Celtic news that but yesterday calmed everybody down a wee bit. But you look at him, you look at him, and at the beginning of the show we said that players must get game time. He's included in that. But what's to stop us for saying, is he in the 16? If he's not, let's get him game time somewhere else.
But
Manchester City, and he's scared to do it.
Well, if he was to go to one of these clubs like Kevin mentioned, let's say for example Bayern Munich, who are keeping a close eye on developments in Scottish academies, etc. What they might do is just play him in academy games, the B team. You know, like Ryan Gold, when he goes to Sporting Lisbon, he's immediately in the B team at that point.
Yeah.
Or they might loan him out. So what's the harm in Celtic loaning him out and keeping him and being the parent club for Dembele? Should he develop the way everybody thought?
They will be putting games on anyway, Paul. He'll be getting game time. Granted, they're non-competitive games, but he'll still be playing in games, as will others be in there.
One of the examples is Martin Odegaard, who was linked with us
Yeah.
when Ronnie Dyer was there, ended up going to Real Madrid. I'm sure he's played in the Dutch league.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's also played in the Spanish league as well.
Yeah.
But he's still a Real Madrid player. But how far away is he away from getting into that Real Madrid side?
I think he's played for Real Madrid, isn't he? The first team. He has played one game
I'm
at
not
least.
100% sure. But I just know that wherever he's went on loan, he's actually shone on loan.
Going back-
actually, Manchester City looked to take him on loan.
Yeah, it's going back to what Jim says though, if you've got a relationship with a club where you know that the philosophy and the culture of that club suits the way that Celtic think, you could put a player over there and trust that he's going to obviously get the development that he requires.
To circle off the Dembele situation, I would be looking to send him on loan, but I would be looking to send him on loan to a league in Europe.
Yeah, get him out of the Scottish
Get him
again.
out of the
You didn't want him
Scottish.
to disappear into the third tier English football.
No. I would look to the Dutch league or somewhere like that.
Manchester City have been a good partner with Celtic. Would you agree?
I think we've done well out of that relationship or that arrangement.
So, but they're confident. They're confident in getting players up to Celtic. So hopefully that puts to bed all these different things that people are putting out, that individual trainers here, individual this. Celtic, they're sending players up. A team like Manchester City, an organisation like Manchester City wouldn't be sending these players up over the years. They've got faith in sending them into Celtic to help them progress as players. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, you're
so
right.
we've got to have faith as well in putting players out. Sorry, that wasn't my question to you, that just came into my head. What players in the current team just now went out on loan and come back better players?
McGregor,
Yep,
Ayer,
yep,
and Christie.
yep.
And arguably Tom Rogic, because we did send them out on loan to get games and he come back.
Have they come back better with the experience?
I think they did, yeah. And interestingly enough, Ayer and Christie got that experience in Scottish football.
Yes.
One at Kilmarnock, one at Aberdeen.
Aye.
So just by playing the games, and I mean, when you look at them now, they are for me, they're still two first picks in the team, and they gained that experience within our own league. But I take your point, Kevin. I don't think that's the move for Dembele.
No, I don't think so either.
Interestingly enough, from Facebook, we're getting that Odegaard did get shipped out to Real Sociedad, Kevin, but Zidane's called him back for this season.
Wow. So
Excellent.
2 loan moves, 2 successful loan moves, and now he's in the Real Madrid first team
There was
squad.
even rumours that he might end up at Celtic Park because of the Ronnie Dyla connection, wasn't there?
Aye.
Making his debut for, what was the name of the team again? Stromsgård set
I
at
thought
the
he was
age of 15.
15. He
Yeah.
was 15, aye.
You know, Paul, we're talking about all these different subjects here. We've still got a quadruple to go for from last season. We've got still got the Scottish Cup to go
Quadruple
for.
treble.
Yeah, we've still got that to go for. And once we get that a cup game out the way as well, and progress, and it'll be interesting. We've still got a very, very interesting and a great season ahead of us, haven't we?
We're still going for our
And it's
4th
great.
and 5th trebles in a row. We're going for our 4th and 5th trebles in a row. That is astonishing, Kevin.
So the fifth one's a
A quintuplet.
A quintuple.
A quintuple.
A quintuple.
A quintuple.
Anyway,
Quintuplets are that's 5 kids.
let's look at the quadruple first.
The quadruple treble, and again, I think I made the point that had it not been for a really bad decision against Inverness, Caley Thistle would have been going for, what would it be, 7 and 8 years.
7 and 8 years, aye.
Anyway, it's been an absolute fascinating insight into the worlds of Celtic via the YouTube, Facebook and Twitter users, as well as Jim Simonetti and Kevin Graham. If you haven't done so already, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and also get subscribing on YouTube, and we should be back to speak to you tomorrow again. We also look at some non-Celtic content, believe it or not. We've got a very special guest tomorrow who will be well known. He's a Scottish football managerial legend. He's a poet, Kevin, and he's an MBE, which I might ask him about. But he will be on A State of Mind tomorrow as well. And we will be also recording episode 2 of the Salt and Sauce Show on Wednesday with a very special guest. So I'm looking forward to that. But until then, thank you all for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.